What if you had a Mr. Peabody and Sherman Wayback Machine and could go back to 1965 and buy a new Stratocaster? Wouldn't that be cool? Well, with the exception of a custom shop, this is about as close as you're going to get to the Wayback Machine. At NAMM 2025, Fender released 5 new guitars to the already popular American Vintage II series. And one of them is the 1965 Stratocaster. To start with, I love the case. The old style black hard case with the orange lining takes me back to my Fender guitars I had back in the day. It's so funny that a little thing like just getting the case lining color right makes me smile. Now, crack open the case to reveal the sweet smell of nitro and the guitar nestled snugly in its orange crush velveteen with that luscious sonic blue nitrocellulose lacquer alder body and the rosewood fretboard. Wow, this thing is just gorgeous. And they really nailed the shade of sonic blue. It's a slightly lighter pale blue and has a slight greenish color to it. It's really a knockout, and the subtle color is complemented by the vintage white 3-ply pickguard and the plastics. I haven't taken specific measurements, but the Fender literature states that the American Vintage II series has period-accurate body, neck, and hardware. It's probably just my imagination, but the body feels a little fatter, or maybe it has a slightly different carve that's more vintage correct. And this is a 2-piece alder body. That's something that a lot of people don't think about. Other Fender guitars can be as much as 5 pieces of wood glued together. The high-end custom shop guitars are sometimes a single slab body. The less pieces of wood in the body, the less glue and seams to disconnect the tone. Of course, a big plus is the lacquer finish, which I understand is not the same ye old lacquer of the olden days, but it's the best we've got in these good old days. The American Vintage II 1965 is available in 3 colors: candy apple red, shoreline gold, and my personal favorite, sonic blue. So I love the eggshell white 3-ply pickguard and the vintage white pickup covers and plastics. Not only does it accentuate the subtle sonic blue color, but it contrasts really nicely and makes the color pop. Speaking of small, insignificant details, I love the transitional style logo and the attention to detail by applying it over the lacquer. It's just exactly how I remember it in 1965. It screams California, surfing, the Beach Boys, and it makes me feel like I'm 15 again. Okay, some people don't like the pearloid fret markers, but I do, because that's how they were in 1965. And you can always buy a 1961 Strat if you want the clay dots. But right now we're in 1965, and I need all those little details to match so I can get the mid-60s vibe. The American Vintage II 1965 Strat has a round laminate rosewood fretboard with 21 narrow tall frets. The fret ends are finished and polished to a shiny smooth surface, and they feel super slick. The neck is a little chunkier than a player or a modern C shape. I've got small hands, and I have no problems getting around on this neck. Fender calls this a C-shaped neck, but what I do notice is there seems to be more shoulder to the neck. It's very comfortable to play, and rest assured it's not a 50s style baseball bat neck, which is good news for my extra fumbly fat fingers. The bone nut on mine was cut accurately, and the setup was very close to the way I like it. Now, what is a laminate rosewood fretboard? I was confused too. So there are some people that really get into the minutia and detail of guitars. I try not to be one of those guys, but let me just mention that the round laminated fretboard is different from a slab fretboard. Instead of the fretboard being glued to the maple neck with a straight cut on the bottom, It's sawn with a radius cut with a reverse radius on the other side of the maple neck. Some people say this gives the 65 a unique sound and it sounds different from a slab fretboard. I don't know if I'd go that far, but it's interesting and it looks kind of cool. And yes, the truss rod adjustment is in the vintage correct location at the heel of the neck where you can't get to it. I don't really care if it's a pain in the ass. That's where it's supposed to be. I love the dark rosewood fretboard, but after about an hour of playing, my fingers turned black. I'm guessing that they dye the rosewood to get the darker color. I just hope the dye is safe. Also be aware that the lacquer finish on the back of the neck becomes sticky after playing a while. Wiping it off with a clean cloth helps. I love the lacquer finish, but I don't like the way it gets sticky. The hardware on the American Vintage II is Fender's Pure Vintage series, which means most of it is still manufactured on the original 50s and 60s era factory machines. Using the old tooling from back in the day just gives a nod to the vintage spec like the custom shop stuff. Does it really make a difference? Maybe. A little? These touches seem so minute and insignificant, yet the sum of it all makes the quality. Okay, let's take a look under the hood. The first thing I noticed was that the entire underside of the pickguard has a substantial foil shielding. Unfortunately, no cavity shielding or shielding paint, but I guess that would not be period correct. It's nice also that all the interior of the guitar is finished and painted. The pots are CTS with cloth wiring. Everything looks clean and vintage correct. It's wired with volume, tone 1 for the neck, and tone 2 for the middle and the bridge. It's got a 5-way switch, not period correct, but most would agree functionally better. This is the first time I've seen what I think is a builder's name on a non-custom shop guitar. Antonio is the first name, and the last name is partially covered, but it ends with E-N-T-E-S. The pickups are Fender Pure Vintage 65, gray bottom, Alnico 5, fiber bobbins with cloth wire. I was a little concerned that mid-60s pickups might have an overly sharp or piercing quality, but I was pleasantly surprised to find that I really like the sound of these pickups. They're balanced and full sounding. In fact, the neck pickup is probably one of my favorite pickups. It's got a fullness, but it stays clean and articulate. And when you play a big, clean, open chord, you hear every note. Worth noting is to the vintage spec, the middle pickup is not reverse wound and is not noise canceling when used in combination with the other pickups. The pickup resistance reads 6.09 for the bridge, 5.87 for the middle, and 5.88 for the neck. Let's take a listen to some sounds. No pedals, straight into a Fender reissue deluxe reverb with a Shure SM57 mic. The guitar is finished off with 10-gauge strings, which are still lighter than what we had in 1965. In 1965, light gauge didn't even exist. It was just electric guitar strings. Everyone used 13 to 56 gauge with a wound G string. Try bending that. That's when men were men. So how does it play? Who cares? I just want to stare at it. It's got some mojo. Fender's fired up the mojo machine and baked a little magic into the details to make this guitar come together in something special. Yes, it is pricey. $2,300 is the most I've ever paid for a guitar, but there's a difference you can definitely feel. It's always hard to quantify exactly what it is that makes it feel like a better instrument, but it is noticeable, and I'll pay if I can feel that extra quality, and obviously I did. So what's different about this guitar from, say, a Ventera or a Player series? It's not an obvious thing. I have 3 Ventera guitars, and I love them, but this guitar is better. The specs don't show it, you can't see it. There's a difference in the pickups and the sound, but it comes down to more personal taste. But I can tell you from my comparisons with a lot of other guitars that I have, this one's better. I bought this guitar directly from Fender because no one else had it in stock. It's a popular guitar right now, and Fender is getting clever. They only sent a few guitars to even their highest volume dealers like Guitar Center, Chicago Music, and Sweetwater, and they were sold from pre-orders immediately. So now Fender Online is the only way to buy one. Pretty cagey, Fender. At least with my other Sweetwater guitar purchases, I could see what I was getting with their gallery pictures. But I seriously rolled the dice on this guitar. Turns out everything about the guitar was great, except the weight. I didn't have my heart set on a featherweight, but I was really disappointed that this one weighed in at 8 pounds, 4 ounces. Maybe mine was just an exceptionally heavy one, but I was so upset I posted another video about overweight guitars. I really don't know too many players that want a heavy guitar, and Fender should be more selective about the wood and the weight of their top-tier guitars. I'd love to hear from you guys to see if weight is a factor when you're buying a guitar, and how much weight is too heavy, or does it matter at all to you? Thank you for watching. I hope you gained some insight into the American Vintage II 1965 Stratocaster. Please like and subscribe.